Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about one British writer of Japanese origin whose name is Kazuo Ishiguro, and particularly I'm going to talk about his novel Never Let Me Go, uh, which I really liked a lot. And first of all, just a few words about the author itself. I looked through some of his interviews. Of course, I didn't spend a lot of time to listen to all what he says. Some things were not very interesting to me. But I had this impression, especially from the interview when he was younger and from the interview of 1995, that this author is like a very handsome man with a very stiff face and a reserved smile, and who spoke perfect English and slowly and very clearly. And I think one of the most important things about the author that he is Japanese origin, but when he was 5 years old, he moved to Britain, and so he grew up there, and he says of himself as a British. But of course, I think still some things that we also can read in his books. Actually reveals that his parents were still Japanese, and there is some cultural patterns that you can see in his books and maybe behavior somehow. Apart from that, I liked one idea that he mentioned that that this book Never Let Me Go actually has a movie, and I really want to watch it. I haven't watched it yet, but I think I will do it maybe tonight. That he said that actually he's trying to create some kind of unfilmable books, that to create some territories that only a book can offer and that cannot be replicated in the movies. And I think it's very important for literature as a whole, because you whenever you start reading any book, you already know there is like a movie about it, and it's much easier to watch that movie. But I still think that there is some kind of pleasure in books that you cannot find in movies and replicate it anyhow. uh, and this pleasure is about pleasure of words. There is some beauty and sophistication in the words that you cannot anyhow get from watching a movie. Okay, and I finally start talking about the book itself. So as I showed it, the novel is called Never Let Me Go, and I wanna first talk a little bit about structure. Structure of the book. So as I see it, there are two kind of movements in this novel, which moves the storyline in some sense. First movement is memories retrospective. So as you know, the narrator is a woman. She's 30 something years old. Her name is Kathy H. And so it's actually her memories retrospective. So she's talking about her memories from the perspective of being a carer already for 12 years, almost 12 years, and she is going deep into her memories, starting from childhood, where she grew up in a school called Helisham. And so the movement goes from this school to where she ends up her, let's say, story at the plugged field. So the movement goes from her childhood. Her memories start from her childhood to this end point. And also we can notice that it's kind of movement from a single locality, which is Helisham as a school where she grows up, and to a point where she doesn't have this single locality, where she moves from one center, donation center, to another, and from gas stations, from forest, she sees the road all the time, and she feels like she finds Halisham at all of those places, like something always reminds her about her childhood spent in Halisham. Okay, and of course, I think this is very important how the storyline moves here, because one of the ideas that I find in this novel is the idea of a decay, and this idea is not shown only through metaphors in this novel, but also on the level of the storyline, because the character goes from a single locality where all her friends grew up with her, to the end point where she loses everyone, she stays alone, and she doesn't have, even Halisham already doesn't exist, and she doesn't have a single place, scattered like all over Britain, I don't know, like all around that area. And so this is the first movement that I noticed. The second movement is the movement from secret to truth. So it's kind of unrolling, unwinding the truth, and although all donors kind of have this truth inside of them, hidden, not like they didn't realize this truth until the end, but and at the end you have this point where you can speak the truth loud, even scream it out, and maybe fully understand the tragedy of this situation. Okay, so this is about the structure. Now about the narrator. As I said, the narrator is a woman of 32 years old. I think she is a carer, and uh, she actually, how to say it, what what has like a very special thing about her is, first of all, I think that she has a very, why she is such a successful carer, because she has this mother instinct which is emphasized in this character, uh, to testify that she has this instinct. There is a very prominent scene which is um, maybe mentioned a couple of times through the book, is the scene where she listens to a cassette, listens to a song called Never Let Me Go, and she actually imagines that she has a baby and she dances with that baby. So I think what makes it so special about her is that she has this instinct of caring about her babies, which she cannot have, and instead she cares about people around her, feels their needs, and knows how to help them, knows when she should be there for them and where she should better leave them alone. Apart from that, we know that although it's not very, you cannot notice it very much, but she has her own authority and her respect. She understands her duty, and uh, in contrast to two main characters, which is Tommy and Ruth, she she doesn't have she doesn't fight against she doesn't fight against or protest against her fate, let's say, because they have their own destiny that all the clones have to follow, and they don't have any other choice. They all know that they will die at around 30-35 years old. And remains calm about that. She never protests, and you cannot see like very very strong feelings of Cass towards this problem. But as a narrator, as someone who organizes the novel, I think what is very interesting about Cass as an element of the narration is that um, when she talks, she often indicates the time because this is her memories. This is basically the reconstruction of her memories, and she has to kind of locate the reader into her memories. So often the paragraph will start with like, this was a long time ago, this was this kind of day, very sunny, and I remember it as it is. So, and then she tells about some case that happened at Helisham, for example, or she says like, okay, that sounds long enough, I know, but I will tell you this story, something like that. So she tries to really locate us with some kind of time indicators. Then I noticed that there is some kind of TV show method actually. I guess this really comes especially in modern TV shows when she triggers something that is gonna happen in the next chapter. She triggers it in the, it may happen in the middle of the chapter, or let's say in the end of the chapter. She says, okay, then um, this is what happened, this is what I think about, but I will explain it later in the next chapter, or I will explain it later in the novel what happened. So it actually triggers the reader because the reader doesn't understand what exactly she's talking about, but there is an anticipation of what's gonna happen. Like it really keeps the reader wanting to know what will happen next. Okay, so for example, she may say like, I waited for her to explain what she meant, but she didn't. I found out through over the next several days, and then she links to the later episodes in the book. Like, okay, the third detail I like about the narrator is actually that she appeals to a reader, and actually we understand that she supposes the reader to be not a human, like a normal human. She supposes the reader to be another clone, like a clone who will understand her. And this is very clearly in the novel because and that reader should actually know about the dystopian world, about the rules that this world plays by, follow which rules it follows. And she says like, I don't know how it was where you were. Like, she starts her sentences like this: I don't know how it was where you were. So it clearly says that she's talking to someone who may grew up not in Helisham but in another center, but she wants to tell you how it was in Helisham. Um, so yeah, you can feel it. So she talks to someone who may understand, who may grew up as the same way as she did. And another prominent thing is that because it's a reconstruction of her memory, we can actually see that her memories may change over time. And she says like, okay, I didn't understand this back at that moment, but after that I realized that it means this, or I don't remember it very well. She says something like that, and this makes the text very realistical. I think something like of a maybe diary of reflection on what happened. And I really like it this way because the story is very very realistic, although it's kind of in a dystopian world. Okay, then what I really appreciate about this book is the language, because the language is very clear, very natural, and you cannot see how actually the things passes from one mode to another mode. Let's say uh, the backbone of the novel is that it's a Cassie's speech, right? So it's her memories. She talks about it, but you cannot notice how slightly the author moves to some dialogues, like more neutral speech, let's say, because of course Cassie's memories are more subjective, but then the author moves to showing like the speech of Tommy, the speech of Ruth, and this is not what Cassie thinks, this is how Tommy and Ruth speak, so you cannot actually it's not very artificial, it feels very natural when the author moves from subjective speech to this more neutral speech of other characters. And also you also can notice that donors, they all have their own jargon, their own language, because they sometimes they even use this euphemism, because they don't say about death directly. They say like she has to complete, so she has to die after she donated her organs, for example. And instead they sometimes use such terms as deferral, veterans, and etc. And why is it like this is because what I actually find very interesting, and I don't understand it until this point, is that all donors, they avoided to talk about their duties, and this all donors thing is because they were embarrassed of it. And although they knew their fate, they still never talked among themselves, or never talked to their like guardians at Helisham about their duty, because they were embarrassed to talk about it. And that is really a bit weird to me. Why? Okay, and I really enjoyed how he describes. There are a lot of action words in this novel, like as the actions that actually happen all the time, and some kind of repeat all the time. Like, for example, you can find characters rummaging through some stuff they have, their possessions, their collection chests, rummaging in the car or in a shop. Then a lot of scenes have little touches, little small kisses, squeezes, little hits of the body. And also the author wants to emphasize that these clones, they have their own kind of small community, and it's very important that these people, they stay by side, huddled together, or walk in one file, as he says. And my absolute low in this novel is the landscape metaphors. Like, this is just amazing, because the mood of the characters is emphasized a lot by the environment they happen to be at the moment when Cassie describes some scene, right? And I think this is something that you can notice in romantic novels, in I mean in this period of literature, romanticism, where like, okay, the character is sad, so it's raining. This is a very like stupid example, I think, but in romantics they actually gave a birth to this kind of feature when um, you can see you can see your feelings, your sentiments described in the book, they are emphasized, and they are they look stronger, because you also write something about the environment, the landscape, the weather, etc., etc. And one of the most prominent scenes is when Ruth, Tommy, and the main character, Cass, they go to seize the boat, and they see uh, the dead trunks from the soil and the boat there, and it actually first of all says about their feelings, that they are broken, they feel sad, they are going to know the truth. And second, it actually shows uh, what kind of future, that it's only sad broken future that awaits for them as a result. And I think this is like one of the most beautiful things about this novel. Okay, and lastly, maybe I will talk about themes in this novel. I have distinguished, I think, three main themes, and first is love. Of course, it's a very romantic book. Love and plastics, love and erosion. So why do I will talk about construction of love, because this question is particularly of my interest. I want to create a love novel. So that's why I kind of look at the details of how different authors try to construct it. And why I say love and plastics, because a lot of stuff that the author describes in his novel is actually like a cassette box. If you remember cassette boxes, because I remember them in my childhood before the discs appeared, we had cassette and tape recorder, and I had a lot of them. And I remember that these boxes were like transparent plastic, and you put it in a pile, and like they feel like that, like some plastic box, also balloons, you can see in this novel. Also at the end of the novel, the main character, Cass, she's standing in a field and see the trash, the torn plastic sheeting and plastic bags that like somewhere on the tree. So I feel like this is a very important material metaphor in this novel. Second theme is the cruelty of world, humanity, and I will also talk about this. And the third theme is creativity. Okay, let's start with the love, construction of love, and what's interesting about this is that, first of all, the story would not be so interesting if it's just love between one woman and one man, or two men or two women. So it's a love triangle, obviously, because our carer, Cass, she falls in love in Tommy when they are kids, and but Tommy, for some reason, he also falls in love with Cass, but for some reason they date with Ruth, and also Cassie is a friend of Ruth, and this is a love triangle, let's say. Not trivial love triangle, because, like, I don't know if you think about like Don Juan, for example, the story, two women compete with each other for a man, something like that. So uh, it's a fight. Usually, when there is a love triangle, it's a fight between two men or two women for the love lovely person. But here you don't see any competition. Let's say a slightly competition, but like, because Ruth actually fights for Tommy, right? And she hides the truth from Cass in some for some reason. But Cass is not so competitive, so there is no like there is no fight between them. Okay, then it's also we also see the process how these kids at Halisham, they start realizing themselves, the world around, other clones than other people, and how they fear the world. So everything, the realization of each other actually happens on the body level first. So how Tommy and Cass, for example, get to realize each other. There was a scene on the field when Cassie comes to Tommy and wants to, I don't know, quiet him down, calm him down, because and she says that his t-shirt has some mud on it, and she puts her arm on his shoulder, but there is an abrupt movement, and no one actually, everyone sees it and no one expects it, that he throws up his arm, knocked Cassie's hand aside, and hit the side of her face, and it was like a complete shock for everyone. But deep inside, Cass realized that it was not something intentional from Tommy, and she's okay with that. Okay, how Ruth and Cass got to know each other. It's actually that they were like in Sandpit, both of them, and already then Ruth is a very interesting character. She has this authority, and Cass realizes herself that she is afraid. Like she says, absolutely dreading the idea of turning Ruth's gaze on her. So she's really scared to realize this her gaze on her body. So I would say it's this love. There is a realization of each other happens when they're kids and on body level. Of course, it's like very natural. Then uh, Cass and Ruth, they share a horse. Then it moves to more behavioral level, and they see how they actually treat each other, right? And okay, so then, as I said, on the behavioral level, love happens to be something that every clone does for one another. Like, for example, when Cass loses her cassette, Ruth is someone who brings this cassette for her. Like, not the exact same one, but she just buys some other to substitute. And although Cass realizes that it's not what she wants, but still she realizes that she's very happy because Ruth did it for her, because it was not left without um, like attention. Okay, and the same way, Tommy later he will convince Cass to go to the shop and find this cassette in a corner, in a lost corner. Love is also something that when they actually realize who they are, and they are different from guardians, from people, real people. So there is an opposition between clones against the world, and that's how they also see their loves, that they are different and they had to stay together side by side to fight against the world that will never understand them. Love is also what I particularly like about this novel is that love is not idealistic. It's far away from idealistic. And it's also not idealistic friendship, which I really appreciate. Uh, Although, like, yeah, these people, they they dream together. They, for example, dream. They have hopes together. They go to Norfolk to find the cassette. They dream about deferral, for example. They have secrets together, and even guilty secrets. Um, and what I particularly like is that they have these guilty betrayals, because, like, for example, At one moment, Cass can betray Tommy because she and Bruce they both discuss the animals, which is a very vulnerable topic for Tommy, and they laugh about it. And then, as a manipulator, Bruce mentions this topic and makes hurts Tommy about these animals. And then there is a scene when they are in a car, and Ruth is very happy. She's smiling, and then she says something. But both Tommy and Cass they feel they want to be opposite to Ruth, and they stop her. Then they argue with her to make her upset. I don't know if it's intentionally or not, but as the author says, they felt that they wanted to be together, and they didn't want Ruth to be there, so this kind of thing. So, and of course, how can we testify that this was a true love, a true friendship, is that there are memories about it, and in these memories they live in these memories, and that's how we can say that it's a true love or true friendship. Okay, this is the construction of love. I wanted to read a passage about it, about this materialization as well. I will see it now. Okay, love scene. Yeah. So the scene goes when the characters are at Norfolk, and they Tommy comes up to Ruth, and he asks her to go and look for this lost cassette of with a song "Never Let Me Go." And when I think of that moment now, standing with Tommy in the little side street about to begin our search, I feel a warmth welling up through me. Everything suddenly felt perfect. An hour set aside, stretching ahead of us, and there wasn't a better way to spend it. I had to really hold myself back from giggling stupidly or jumping up and down on the pavement like a little kid. Not long ago, when I was caring for Tommy and I brought up this Norfolk trip, he told me he told me that he'd felt exactly the same. That moment when we decided to go searching for my lost tape, it was like suddenly every cloud had blown away and we had nothing but fun and laughter before us. At that start, we kept going into the wrong sort of places, second-hand bookshops or shops full of old vacuum cleaners, but no music at all. After a while, Tommy decided I didn't know any better than he did and announced he would lead the way. As it happened, by sheer luck really, we discovered straight away a street with four shops of just the kind we were after, standing virtually in a row. Their front windows were full of dresses, handbags, children, annuals, and when you went inside, a sweet stale smell. There were piles of creased paperbacks, dusty boxes full of postcards or trinkets. One shop specialized in hippie stuff, while another had war medals and photos of soldiers in the desert. But they all had somewhere a big cardboard box of or two with LPs and cassette tapes. We rummaged around those shops, and in all honesty, after the first few minutes, I think Judy Bridgewater had more or less slipped from our minds. We were just enjoying looking through all those things together, drifting apart, then finding ourselves side by side again, maybe competing for the same box of bric-a-brac in a dusty corner lit up by a shaft of sun. Then, of course, I found it. I'd been flicking through a row of cassette cases, my mind on other things, when suddenly there it was, under my fingers, looking just the way it had all those years ago. Judy, her cigarette, the coquettish look for the barman, the blurred palms in the background. I think that's an absolutely beautiful scene when mm, you can notice a couple of things. First of all, they all go through this boxes, I don't know, cassette cases, everything. So it actually, I think this is a very emphasized topic in the novel. This stuff that is maybe like has some space inside, empty in the inside, but has this like uh, I don't know how to say it, like just some stuff that has to be filled. And I think this is how people treat the clones, that they are just like empty boxes or empty cassettes without no feeling, without anything, without soul inside. But these things you may see in the novel a lot, like these kind of things, right? And also they seen that they want to like be together, realize each other at this moment, but also drift away and in their own thoughts, and absorbed by this thing of looking for this cassette or recording, right? And finally they not only find this recording, but they also find that they are really in love with each other. Okay, and now I will talk a little bit about this question of humanity, and of course, what I thought when I thought about this topic is two other authors. Is first is Michel Houellebecq, which talks a lot about consumerism actually, and he actually shows that people are really they are really about consuming stuff in the modern world, and that's why they start objectifying other people, treat them the same as other products or the same as other things. And I think that that is what happened in this novel too, like because really human, they are objectifying these clones for their own purposes. And maybe this also leads a little bit to Friedrich Nietzsche, and what Nietzsche, and one of his ideas is that actually people will modify their thinking according to their own needs, so you can see the truth the way you want to see it actually. So, and as the author in this novel says, there will always be a barrier from seeing you as human, as properly human beings, because it's beneficial to people to think of these clones as not as artificial, as someone, as objects, as someone who doesn't have a soul, because it's beneficial, because it's easier to think this way. It doesn't leave you guilty, and you can use the organs like this. Clones were created for taking unzipping them, right, taking their organs and using for our own purposes. And this is a very very sad reality of on one side consumerism, on the other side it's a reality of the world which is based on science, on scientific thinking, let's say. Okay, and the other authors that I was thinking about is actually Philip Dick with the novel. Forgot the novel name again. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? And there was also like this novel is about robots, and it's very hard to distinguish between people and robots, and So there are special tests which will say, but as Philip Dick writes himself, there is, like this. What distinguishes robots from humans is the compassion, because robots say they are superior, but they also don't realize that what pain is, or they cannot understand that a creature that they may hurt, they can feel pain. So there is a scene when a robot tries to kill a spider in this Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and um, because they noticed that it was done so cruelly, so they realized that robots will never understand this emotional intelligence, compassion. They will never have this feature. And if you look through that glass to on this novel, uh, you will understand that robots or this superior creatures are humans here, because they don't feel compassionate to these clones, whereas clones really have a deep link to each other. Like as Cass says, she has this link as a carrier. She has a link to each donor because she is compassionate and has this emotional intelligence. Okay, and the third kind of theme is creativity, because like these donors, they are forced to submit some kind of creative work to the gallery to prove that they have souls. Um, and I don't think this is like a very European cultural construction, because uh, I think Europeans had this ideas that, yeah, if you are prone or you are able to create some kind of art, then you are a very very proper human, or you are decent, you are higher level human, right? But I think this is like a very big illusion, because morality sometimes has nothing to do with creativity. Even from my personal life, I know a very 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 creative people, but they are not really moral. They don't take really good decisions in communicating with people, right? So creativity is not like indicator of someone who has morality or has a soul. That's that's it. But what's a very good question for discussion in this way is actually when Tommy and Cass, they have conversation with Madame and Emily, Miss Emily, who were guardians in Halisham. Uh, I don't remember who exactly, but maybe Tommy asks, "Why didn't you tell us the truth, like directly as it is? You just gave us some portions or hid the information about our role, about the purpose of our creation." And Madame says that because you didn't realize that you will die at 30, you you had to create and you enjoyed your days, but if you knew, you will never enjoy it, you will never appreciate it. But you had this joy, you were completely secured in your illusion. And I think this is a very good topic for discussions. This is what happens a lot in our everyday lives, that we kind of lie for someone we love, and we tend to think that this truth that we hide, or we don't speak out, this truth is for a good purpose. But in reality, maybe it's not like that, because these people don't even have a choice of knowing the truth, right? And when they really learn the truth, they feel the tragedy of the situation. And that's why we have this climax when Cass and Tommy, they go back to their center, and Tommy stops, get lost somewhere in the woods, in the mud, and he screams and shouts, and I don't know, just tries to fight the air. I don't remember exactly. And this is an absolute, also beautiful scene of Tommy, of his character, how he realizes the tragedy, and that if he knew the truth, maybe he would enjoy his last days to the fullest, enjoy sex with Cassie, I don't know, something like that. It's an absolutely devastating and beautiful scene, I think. Okay, so I think the last thing I want to read, um, yeah, the last thing I want to read is the final scene where Cassie stands on the field, and what's her feelings actually, how the novel ends. I found I was standing before acres of plotted earth. There was a fence keeping me from stepping into the field with two lines of barbed wire, and I could see how this fence, the cluster of 3 or 4 trees above me, were the only things breaking the wind for miles. All along the fence, especially along the lower line of wire, all sorts of rubbish had caught and tangled. I was like the debris It was like the debris you get on the seashore. The wind must have carried some of it for miles and miles before finally coming up against these trees and these 2 lines of wire. Up in the branches of the trees, too, I could see flapping about torn plastic sheeting and bits of old carrier bags. That was the only time, as I stood there looking at that strange rubbish, feeling the wind coming across those empty fields, that I started to imagine just a little fantasy thing, because this was Norfolk after all, and it was only a couple of weeks since I'd lost him. I was thinking about the rubbish, the flapping plastic in the branches, the shoreline of odd stuff caught along the fencing, and half closed my eyes and imagined this was the spot where everything I'd ever lost since my childhood was washed up, and I was now standing here in front of it, and if I waited long enough, a tiny figure would appear on the horizon across the field, and gradually get larger until I'd see it was Tommy, and he'd wave, maybe even call. The fantasy never got beyond that. I didn't let it, and though the tears rolled down my face, I wasn't sobbing or out of control. I just waited a bit, then turned back to the car to drive off to wherever it was I was supposed to be. So yeah, it's like really emotionally very, very devastating thing when she stands on the empty field and she sees these empty objects on the trees, empty plastics, trash, which is actually resembles the clone life, right? Like what humans thinks about clones, and there is a wire which keeps this trash condensed in this open but still closed area. And she has this fantasy, right, about Tommy coming to her waving, and but still she controls herself because she's a carer, she has this duty, and she will go back to a car and go to her donors and then become a donor herself. I think this is a very, very powerful novel about love, and in general. It's a very, very impressive love story, and also it raises many, many questions about us humans. Very philosophical in a sense, and very, of course, very, very sad. But the best stories are always sad. Like any story you can take, it's always sad. That's why it reaches deeply your soul and raises some questions, gives a push to your thinking, right? And I really loved it. I really recommend you to read it. Don't watch a movie before you read it, because especially the environment scenes are very, very beautiful. The description, I really loved it. Really loved it. Okay, thank you for listening, watching my clothes on the background. Okay, see you. Bye bye.